Hello and welcome to the Wireless LAN News Desk on June 22nd, 2018. I'm Tom Carpenter, the CTO of CWNP, and this week in the news, just a couple of things. First of all, I want to talk about embeddable APs. This is a new phrase that's floating around by at least one vendor, and recently they released a new AP called the E510, and this is Ruckus Wireless. This E510 is what's called a modularized AP. Now, that phraseology can get a bit confusing because over the years, it has meant different things for different vendors with different AP models. So some vendors, when they say modularized AP, they mean you can pull out the radio and put in a different radio. We saw that a lot from 1999 through to 2010, and even some still today. This concept of modularized APs means that the RF module is separate from the antenna module. So the RF module is what we typically think of as the AP. The antenna module is separate. And the reason Ruckus uses this terminology is specifically because their antennas are different than other people's antennas. They have patented antenna technology that does things differently. So I think they can justify the phraseology use there. Now, when we're dealing with these APs, the cool thing about the E510, and some of the other vendors are coming out with these kinds of APs as well, is it's very, very small. The AP itself, the RF module, is 8.3 inches by 5.6 inches by only 1.3 inches thick. Then the RF module, or rather the antenna module, which is the external antenna set, is 6.9 inches by 3.15 inches by 3.15 inches thick. So the antenna module is fairly small. The AP itself is really very thin and small. So it's ideal for a lot of scenarios. And these kinds of small form factor, what we can call embeddable APs, can be embedded or hidden while only the antenna module is showing. But even the small form factor APs that have internal antennas can also be beneficial because they can be hidden out of sight. So we can use these in a lot of different areas. We can use such small form factor APs underneath of seats in stadiums, in hotel environments, under desks where they're not really that visible. We can use them in other spaces where we don't want to have them be as intrusive into the aesthetics of the environment because they're very small and they're not as obvious. So these APs have become very popular for a lot of different deployments where aesthetics are important or where you need this concept of small form factor just because of the physical space in which it needs to be placed. So that's something to watch for. Embeddable APs, small form factor APs, whatever you want to call it. Today they tend to be 2x2 802.11 AC Wave 2 APs. And that's fine because that's really all most of our clients need. Think about it. Very few clients are 3x3. Okay, you've got your MacBook Pros and a few others that are out there. But the vast majority of clients are either 1 or 2 spatial streams. So a 2x2 AP serves them sufficiently. And honestly, for most of the 3x3 client devices, they'll get acceptable and even good performance out of a 2x2 AP. So in those cases, it's going to work well for you. Now, I do want to talk about one more thing in the news desk today. And that's going to be RF absorption, and I'll explain why in just a moment. But first of all, a quick reminder about Wi-Fi Trek. So Wi-Fi Trek is coming up in October this year in San Diego, California. We're very excited about the way it's filling up this year, and registration, of course, is still open. You can go to conferences.cwnp.com in order to learn more about Wi-Fi Trek. If you haven't registered yet, make sure you get registered today to get you a place at the hotel venue where the event's going to take place. Okay, with that said, RF absorption, why am I talking about it? Well, here in Ohio, in the last few days, we have had a lot of rain. For us, a whole lot of rain. Heavy rain, 4 or 5 inches, I think, in the last couple of days. So that's a lot of rain. Now, with all of this rain that's come down, I've noticed as I drive around town, sometimes I lose my favorite radio station that I like to listen to the news on. And the reality is that I usually don't. So what's happening? Well, of course, the heavy deluge of rains are attenuating the RF signals from the radio stations. So I want to talk a little bit about RF absorption and why it's important to you in your wireless LANs. Now, the key thing is, of course, there are 2 ways we think of it. When we look at the attenuation of an RF signal, we look at free space path loss, and that's how the signal weakens as it moves through space, as it spreads, covering an ever larger area. And then we also have attenuation caused by materials. That is to say, a signal traveling 100 feet with no materials between the transmitter and the receiver will have a different signal strength at the receiver than if it had passed through 3 walls. The walls attenuate the signal. They absorb the energy. You know, a simple way to think about this is your microwave oven. When you put food in there, it radiates 2.4 gigahertz frequency waves, and those frequency waves are absorbed by the food. That's why it heats up. The waves are converted to heat. And so absorption happens with humans, animals, anything with liquid in it, with stone, brick, wood, glass. All of these things have some level of absorption. Let me give you a few examples at 2.4 gigahertz. So a solid wood door, 5 to 6 dB, brick, 6 to 7 dB, a concrete wall, 15 to 18 dB, a cubicle wall, just around your cubicles in your space, 1 to 2 dB. So there is attenuation caused by all of these materials, and you can roughly double that if it's in 5 gigahertz. It's not quite double, but roughly. So the point is that all of these things attenuate the RF signal. This is why wireless design is so important. It's why we have the CWDP certification, to make sure you understand the process of designing a wireless network, which does include considering attenuation of the RF signal, absorption factors or attenuation factors of the different materials if you're doing an indoor deployment, and even with an outdoor deployment, trees and other things outdoor attenuate the signal. So very, very important to think about absorption, and well, all this rain just got me thinking about it. Well, thank you for joining us for the News Desk today. Remember, go to conferences.cwnp.com in order to sign up. If you haven't subscribed already, you can click the subscribe button to do so. Click the little alarm to be notified when we post videos each week. And thank you very much for joining me today. I'll see you next week.